They don't see your worth. They take your kindness as weakness. They show up when they need you and vanish when you need them. And you're tired, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, tired of showing up for people who wouldn't cross the street for you. You keep asking yourself, why am I always the one giving? Why do they ignore my value? What am I doing wrong? But here's the truth most people won't tell you. The problem isn't that they don't see your value. It's that you've stayed too long in places where your value is discounted. You've been negotiating your worth in rooms where you should have walked out the moment they questioned your price. And that ends now. The secret to dealing with people who don't value you is to stop trying to convince them. Stop performing, stop explaining, stop proving. Because when someone can't see your light, it's not your job to dim it. It's your cue to leave the room. You see, the mistake most of us make is thinking that our value is tied to validation. We think if I show up more, if I give more, if I shrink myself to fit their expectations, maybe they'll finally appreciate me. But listen closely, your value isn't up for debate. It's not something someone else gets to define. Your value is intrinsic, God-given, built into your being. And if they can't see it, that's not your burden, that's their blindness. You have to stop bleeding in places that only know how to watch you suffer. Because the people who truly value you, they don't need constant reminders. They don't forget your worth when it's inconvenient. They don't pick you only when it benefits them. They honor you consistently, quietly, powerfully. The real shift happens when you stop chasing appreciation and start demanding alignment. When you stop asking, why don't they see me? And start declaring, I'm done explaining myself to people who choose to misunderstand me. Because the more time you spend trying to earn value from the wrong people, the more you lose sight of your own reflection. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is go silent. Not to be petty, not to punish, but to preserve your peace. There's a special kind of strength in walking away without closure, in choosing yourself when others won't, in realizing that not everyone deserves access to you, no matter how long they've known you or how deeply you've cared. You've got to be willing to disappoint people who expect you to sacrifice yourself just to keep them comfortable. You've got to be bold enough to stand in rooms where your presence isn't tolerated and say, this is not where I belong. You've got to stop auditioning for roles in people's lives who never had the range to love you fully. Because here's what they don't realize. You staying quiet doesn't mean you're weak. You showing grace doesn't mean you're a pushover. You forgiving doesn't mean you're forgetful. It means you're choosing maturity. You're choosing growth. You're choosing peace over chaos. Trying to convince people to see your worth is one of the most draining, soul-depleting pursuits you can engage in. When someone doesn't value you, the natural tendency is to do more, show more, give more, explain more, in hopes that maybe, just maybe, they'll finally see who you are and appreciate what you bring to the table. But the hard truth is, the more you chase validation, the further you get from your own self-respect. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to campaign for recognition. You don't need to constantly explain your value like it's a sales pitch. What you need to do is walk away. Walking away isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the moment you reclaim your energy from places where it's been misused, because trying to convince people to value you is a form of emotional debt. You're constantly investing in something that never pays you back. And while your heart might be pure and your intention's good, the reality is not everyone is meant to receive you. Not everyone is ready for you. Some people only value what they can take from you, not who you are. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years stuck in cycles of trying to win the approval of people who were never meant to walk with you long term. There is power in knowing when to stay and when to step back. When you realize that you've been begging for attention, for respect, for love, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship built on mutual value, or is it one-sided survival? If someone makes you feel like you're replaceable, it's your responsibility to show them you're not available. Because the longer you stay in places where you're not seen, the more invisible you become to yourself. You were not created to be tolerated. You were made to be celebrated. You were not meant to be someone's second choice, background option, or emotional convenience. If you have to perform for love, it's not love. If you have to beg for time, attention, or honesty, it's not worth your soul. And yes, walking away hurts, especially when you've invested your heart into people who never knew how to handle it. But you know what hurts more? Staying somewhere that makes you question your worth. And letting go isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. It's realizing that your peace matters more than proving a point. You don't have to burn bridges, but you do need to close doors that lead to nowhere. And when you do, you make space for something better. You make space for alignment, for growth, for people who actually get it. People who don't make you feel like you're too much, but remind you that you're more than enough. People who see you, hear you, and choose you, not out of convenience, but out of commitment. So the next time someone treats you like an option, let your silence be the answer. The next time someone makes you feel like you're asking for too much, remind yourself that you're just asking the wrong person. And the next time you feel that ache in your soul telling you that you don't belong, listen. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's your spirit reminding you that your value isn't up for debate. The secret is not to shout louder, it's not to give more, it's not to shrink yourself to fit their comfort zone. The secret is to walk away and mean it. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you were never wrong for expecting more. Because you deserve to be where you are valued without having to earn it every single day. And the moment you stop convincing and start walking, everything begins to change. Your value is not determined by someone else's ability to see it. That's a hard lesson to learn, especially when your heart is involved. When people don't treat you right, it's easy to start believing that maybe you're not enough. Maybe you're too emotional, too demanding, too quiet, too loud, too something. You internalize their inability to value you as your own deficiency. But the truth is, your worth doesn't decrease because someone is blind to it. Your value is intrinsic. You were born with it. It doesn't rise when people applaud you, and it doesn't fall when they abandon you. It's steady, it's sacred, and it's not up for negotiation. Too many people spend their lives trying to adjust themselves for others' comfort. You shrink your voice so someone else can feel heard. You dim your light so others aren't blinded by your brilliance. You become a version of yourself that fits into someone else's box just so you can be accepted. But acceptance at the cost of authenticity is a dangerous trade. The more you try to mold yourself into what others want, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. And the painful irony, even after all that adjusting, they still don't value you. Why? Because value isn't something you prove. It's something they either recognize or they don't. Ask yourself, you have to stop giving people the pen to write your worth. Just because someone doesn't understand your heart, your vision, your journey, doesn't mean you're lost. It means they're not equipped to walk with you. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to. Not everyone is assigned to your story. Some are just there for a season to teach you what not to accept, to show you the mirror you've been avoiding, to challenge your boundaries. But once the lesson is learned, you don't owe them your continued presence. You don't owe anyone your peace in exchange for their temporary attention. And this is why silence becomes one of your most powerful tools. Not to manipulate, not to retaliate, but to protect. Silence is clarity. When you stop over-explaining yourself, people start revealing who they really are. When you stop chasing, you start observing. When you stop speaking just to be heard, you start listening to your instincts, your inner voice, your peace. Silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's maturity. It's choosing not to waste breath where understanding has no home. You don't have to respond to every insult. You don't have to clarify every misunderstanding. You don't have to keep pleading for people to get it. If someone doesn't value you, the most powerful response is quiet distance. Let your absence speak the truth that your presence was once trying to explain. Because when you go silent, you stop fueling the illusion that their behavior is acceptable. You reclaim your time, your energy, your voice. People who truly value you won't need constant reminders of how to treat you. They won't make you question your place in their life. They won't confuse you with mixed signals and temporary affection. They'll be consistent. They'll show up not just when it's convenient, but when it matters. And when you walk in the truth of your value, when you stand in that silence with confidence, you make room for those people to find you. Let silence be your boundary. Let your worth be your anchor. And let go of the need to convince people to see what was never hidden, because you were never too much. You were just trying to be seen by people who couldn't recognize gold even when it was handed to them. From now on, let your silence protect your spirit and let your understanding of your value guard your peace. We live in a world that often glorifies noise, constant talking, clapping back, defending, explaining, reacting, but there is a power that exists beyond words. Silence is not weakness. It's not passivity. Silence is a declaration, a boundary, a powerful statement that says, I no longer owe you access to my voice. There comes a point in life when you must stop responding to what tries to bait you into emotional chaos. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every insult requires an answer. Not every act of disrespect warrants your energy. Sometimes the most mature, most powerful move is to say absolutely nothing. When someone doesn't value you, when they constantly dismiss your emotions, when they treat your presence as optional and your needs as a burden, your silence can be the loudest message you send. Not silence born out of spite, but silence born out of self-respect. You don't have to curse them out or deliver a dramatic exit speech. You just go quiet. You just step back. You choose peace, because arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you is like shouting into the wind. It takes your breath, but moves nothing. There is clarity in stillness. In silence, you hear things you couldn't before, your own intuition, your peace, your wisdom. You begin to realize that much of what you tolerated wasn't love, it was manipulation. It wasn't connection, it was attachment. And sometimes the only way to fully see someone's character is to stop talking and start watching. People reveal everything when you stop feeding their ego with your constant explanations and start valuing your own energy instead. But silence isn't just a response, it's a protection. You protect your mental space from further damage. You protect your heart from needless reopening of wounds. You protect your energy from being siphoned by people who only come around to take. Because once someone shows you they don't respect your presence, every word you speak afterward becomes a negotiation of your dignity. And dignity should never be negotiable. Now, protecting your peace doesn't mean you isolate yourself from everyone. It means you become deeply intentional about who gets access to your world. You don't let chaos live rent-free in your mind. You don't give toxic people the benefit of the doubt over and over again. You stop making excuses for patterns you've seen repeat too many times. Because the truth is, you can't have peace if you keep inviting drama. You can't have clarity if you keep allowing confusion. And you certainly can't have healing in environments that keep wounding you. You begin to choose silence because you've learned the cost of explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You choose peace because you remember what it felt like to lose it. And you guard it like a treasure, because that's what it is. Peace is priceless, and peace is personal. It's the result of hard choices, of letting go, of cutting ties, of walking away with no fanfare. It's the outcome of realizing you don't need to be everywhere, fix everything, or prove anything. When you protect your peace, people will say you've changed. Let them. You weren't created to stay in cycles. You were created to evolve, to grow, to rise above what once held you down. And the path to that elevation often starts in silence, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to stop participating in your own mistreatment. So don't fear the quiet. Embrace it. Let it reset your mind. Let it clear your heart. Let it rebuild your strength. Because the ones who truly value you will never force you to choose between your peace and their presence. And if someone can't handle your silence, they never deserved your voice. There comes a moment in your life when you have to stop bleeding for people who won't even hand you a bandage. You have to stop pouring your time, energy, love, and effort into relationships that only drain you and leave you empty. It's noble to give, to serve, to show up for others. But when your kindness becomes a transaction that never gets reciprocated, it's time to draw the line. You were not put on this earth to exhaust yourself for people who take advantage of your willingness to love. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about honoring yourself enough to protect your peace, your sanity, and your worth. If you keep giving without limits, you will eventually burn out. And when you burn out, you lose more than just energy. You lose pieces of yourself. You start to feel bitter, resentful, tired of always showing up while no one seems to notice when you're the one falling apart. You start to feel invisible. And the cruel part is the very people you've been stretching yourself thin for will act surprised when you finally get tired and walk away. They'll say you changed when really you just woke up. Loving people doesn't mean losing yourself. Helping others doesn't mean neglecting your own needs. When you don't set boundaries, people will treat your sacrifice as standard. They will come to expect your availability, your forgiveness, your effort, even when they offer you nothing in return. And if you're not careful, you'll start to define your worth by how much you can give, how much you can endure, how much you can take before breaking. That's not strength. That's self-abandonment. You have to understand that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not everyone is qualified to be in your inner circle. Some people are energy thieves. They thrive off your kindness, your time, your emotional labor without ever once thinking about how to pour back into you. And it's not your job to teach grown people how to treat you. It's your job to teach yourself how to stop tolerating less than you deserve. It starts with boundaries. Boundaries are the highest form of self-respect. They say, I love you, but I won't lose myself to love you. They say, I can care about you and still care about me more. They say, I choose me even if that means disappointing you. And yes, setting boundaries will upset some people, especially the ones who benefited from your lack of them. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your heart, your spirit, your energy, because when you protect yourself, you can actually show up for the right people in your life from a place of fullness, not depletion. Sometimes you have to step back and evaluate, am I being loved or am I being used? Am I being supported or am I being drained? Am I being respected or am I being tolerated? These questions are hard to face, but they will save your life because the longer you stay in places where you're not truly valued, the more you forget what real value even feels like. You start to normalize chaos, excuse disrespect, justify neglect. You start to think that love always has to hurt. It doesn't. Love isn't meant to crush you. And if it does, it's not love, it's bondage. So draw the line. Say no when your spirit says no. Walk away when your peace is threatened. Let go when the giving only goes one way. Because you can't keep sacrificing your mental, emotional, and spiritual health for people who wouldn't do the same for you. You were never meant to save everyone. You were meant to honor your purpose. And purpose will always require boundaries. One of the most painful lessons in life is realizing that just because someone is close to you doesn't mean they're for you. Proximity does not equal loyalty. The people who stand beside you aren't always the people who will stand up for you. Sometimes the ones you trust the most, the ones you break your back for, the ones you've let into the deepest parts of your life, those are the very people who will betray you when it benefits them. And it stings because you thought history meant something. You thought familiarity was the same as faithfulness, but it's not. Loyalty isn't about how long someone's been in your life. It's not about how often they text you, how many times you hang out, or even how many years you've known each other. Loyalty is proven in silence. It's proven when you're not in the room. It's proven when you're struggling and someone steps in without being asked. It's proven in how they speak about you when it's easier to stay quiet or join in the gossip. Loyalty is revealed in the moments that matter, in the small decisions, in the unspoken defense of your name and your heart. But too often, we confuse shared time with shared values. Just because someone grew up with you or laughed with you or said they loved you doesn't mean they're aligned with you. People can be around you and still not believe in you. They can cheer when you're small and silent when you rise. They can support you when you're broken and secretly resent you when you heal. And you don't see it at first because love blinds you. Loyalty blinds you. You think they'd never hurt me. But loyalty isn't in what people say. It's in what they do when it costs them something to stay. You've got to stop mistaking access for alignment. You've got to start paying attention to how people behave when you're no longer useful to them, when you set a boundary, when you succeed, when you speak the truth. That's when their true nature shows. That's when the mask slips. And it hurts, but it's necessary. Because not everyone who's close to you is close for the right reasons. Some are there for what they can take. Some are there to compete with you, not to celebrate you. Some are only loyal to their comfort, not to your truth. You've got to get real about who's in your corner, who claps when you win, who checks on you without being asked, who defends your name when you're not around, who's still standing with you when things get ugly. When the crowd walks away, when it's no longer popular to be connected to you. That's loyalty, not convenience, not proximity, not history. Loyalty is tested in adversity, it's proven in silence, and it never wavers based on what's easy. And the moment you start valuing loyalty over attachment is the moment your life begins to shift. You'll start to let go of people who are physically close but emotionally distant. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who only pretend to listen. You'll stop chasing validation from friends who were never really rooting for you. You'll free yourself from the burden of fake connections and make room for the real ones, people who show up not just when it benefits them, but because it's who they are. So remember this, you don't owe loyalty to people who are loyal to your pain, but absent from your progress. You don't need to keep people around just because they've always been there. Stop measuring loyalty by years and start measuring it by character. Because in the end, it's not about how many people surround you. It's about how many stand with you when it really counts. Letting go is one of the hardest things a person will ever do, not because you're weak, but because you're human. We're wired to hold on to relationships, to memories, to the hope that things might change. You invest your time, your heart, your energy into someone, and the idea of releasing that connection feels like losing a piece of yourself. But the truth is, holding on to what's hurting you, holding on to people who don't value you, is far more damaging than the pain of letting go. You don't heal by staying in places that keep you broken. You heal by releasing what no longer serves your growth. People fear letting go because it feels like failure, like quitting, like giving up on something that once mattered. But letting go is not giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's saying, I deserve better, even when your heart still cares. It's acknowledging that no matter how much you love someone, you cannot make them love you the way you need to be loved. You cannot teach someone how to treat you if they're committed to misunderstanding you. You cannot force loyalty, empathy, or respect from someone who refuses to give it freely. And staying in that kind of environment doesn't make you strong, it makes you stuck. There's a difference between endurance and wisdom. Yes, you're strong enough to endure mistreatment, emotional inconsistency, and being undervalued. But why should you have to? Why continue carrying weight that isn't yours? Why stay in spaces where you're constantly doubting your worth, questioning your instincts, and justifying someone else's poor behavior? Letting go is your way of saying, I refuse to keep shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. It's saying, I love me enough to walk away. And yes, letting go will hurt. It will feel like grief, like mourning someone who's still alive. You'll replay memories, second guess your decisions, wonder if you're doing the right thing. But every time you choose yourself, every time you remove yourself from what diminishes you, you're planting seeds for a better future. You're creating space for people who won't make you beg for attention, who won't leave you emotionally starved, who will meet you with the same energy you give. Letting go is an act of trust, not in the other person, but in yourself. Trusting that you're not being too sensitive, too dramatic, or too difficult. Trusting that your instincts are leading you in the right direction. Trusting that God, the universe, or whatever you believe in has something better ahead. But that better can't arrive if your hands are still full of what was never meant to stay. You have to release in order to receive. You have to close one chapter before the next can begin. People will question your decision to let go. They'll say you changed. They'll try to guilt you into staying the same, into staying small. But growth always comes with separation. Not everyone can follow you where you're going. Not everyone is meant to. And if you keep trying to bring old patterns, toxic people, and dead weight into your future, you'll sabotage your own progress. So let go, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. Let go not to punish them, but to protect your peace. Let go not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. A beginning where you finally choose you. A beginning where your value isn't up for debate. A beginning where your healing matters more than someone else's comfort. But letting go is how you rise. It's how you reclaim your power. It's how you make room for the life you actually deserve.